It is 11 o'clock on the dot, and I welcome you again to the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies. In migration. Prof, you can mute yourself if the echo is coming from you, and then you're mute when you're about to start. Because if you have a true system, as I guess, it will be echoing. Okay, thank you very much. We want to thank Professor Fadoju for finding time to share knowledge with us. Professor Fadoju, you can Google him, is a great scholar. And looking at the Google Scholar representation of his contribution to scholarship, I was wow, as we say in the state, wow. So we have a lot to learn from this great man, an educationist, and currently the Dean of Faculty of Education, University of Ibadan. I don't want to go into that debate. It's one of those universities. There's only one, and I'm taking the opportunity as the chair of this occasion. There's only one. It's probably smiling. Only one university. Baba also is okay. Because of Baba, I won't say. I keep my mouth shut. Baba Sogolo is saying, Tijani, be careful. Okay, so I won't say anything about UI, but I know where I went and who we are. So I want to thank Prof for finding the time out of his very busy schedule to join us. We really appreciate you. He will be speaking to us and sharing knowledge about sports and migration. Generally presented. His specificity, he will explain shortly. I'm using this opportunity to also thank our sister, a senior fellow in the Center of Migration and Global Studies, Dr. Gloria Aneto. Gloria Aneto has been so wonderful. She is the one that suggested about 4, scholars beyond and outside National Open University of Nigeria. I deeply appreciate you, ma, for that. I appreciate others, the professorial fellows too, Professor Sogolo, Professor Abdallah, Adamu. Those are the 2 professorial fellows for now. Others will be appointed. It's a monthly thing, and the senior colleagues, professors, will soon be appointed. Professor Fadoju, you will have 40 minutes to present, sir. After 40 minutes, we will open to questions and comments, and then you respond. As we discussed 2 days ago, yesterday, late yesterday, you have the latitude to kindly send in a Word format paper for our consideration and for publication. And we'll be delighted. We thank you immensely, and then you can start now, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, the director of the center. I want to thank the entire management of the National Open University of Nigeria now, and of course for the privilege to share this little few slides with us today on sports and migration. It has been a thing of interest to me, and of course to so many, that sports in effect, in the actual fact, is a universal language. I have, for most times, those of our colleagues in the languages who always contest this. Those who speak French would argue that, oh, French is more spoken than other languages. Those who speak Italian and some other language, even English, would argue that, but we argue in sport, that sport is a global network of connections. It's a global language where people interact and make transactions of all kinds. Whatever is a penalty in Nigeria is a penalty in Europe. If you call it a penalty kick, it's not going to be different. If it's a basket you have made, it's a basket in Nigeria, it is a basket in Europe or any part of it, even Asia, any part of the world. Sport is a social village and should not be bound by any racial or geographical barrier. Whatever it is you're doing, once you are involved in sport and you find a sportsman, you will know that you're speaking the same language and you are ready to accommodate, despite the competition as feature of sport. It's, of course, a multi-million-dollar investment. corporate brands and rivalries, tourism, global coverage, and value-based first-class entertainment. There are participants in sports that don't really get involved in active participation, but they are passive. And they pay so much to get information and entertainment in sports. Now, what is about the beginning of sports? It's just started like a survival instinct, leisure pursuit, something that people naturally have to get involved in. Because either you believe the story of the early man or the one of evolution or whatever it is, the biblical story of creation. The fact is that the early man was found somewhere in the forest or wherever in the wild, and he had to survive. And he needed to walk around, he needed to run for survival, he needed to do a number of things. And so gradually, over time, through evolution, sport came into being. And of course, we refined rules and regulations before it became institutionalized. Sport activities provide supportive environment where information can be shared and relationship among athletes can be developed. I know that once you meet, it begins with shaking of hands. You're not minding this period of Ebola, coronavirus, where we are said not to share whatever. But the truth of the matter is that it's easy to acculturate. It's easy to integrate through sport. Your feelings of a feeling of belonging is always there. Once you see somebody, even if you are not involved, once you see a good skill executed, you want to associate with the person. And you want to connect with people whatever their background is. So, across nations, people use sports to enter into various institutions, various countries, and then, of course, that being a source of alleviation of poverty, and opportunities are given to people to migrate. Because you see opportunity in another city, you want to go there. You're finding somebody in another country inviting you to do. There's a space that can open here, you want to be part of it. Human migration is the movement of people from one place to another with the intention of settling permanently or temporarily as a new location. Sometimes it is conflict and a few other factors that force people to relocate. But then, when they relocate, they carry with them their talent, they carry with them whatever skills that they have acquired. And so they are in a new location. Athletes and coaches, they migrate to pursue their dreams. And playing or coaching or professionally abroad has become the aim to earn more money. This paper, I'm going to be looking at it from these few items that I'm sharing here. I'm going to be doing a kind of more enlightenment on the introduction. I'm going to look at some theories of migration. I'm going to look at the roles of sports in the society. What to us in sport, what do we call migration? What do we call migration? What are the typologies of migrant athletes? What motivates athletes to migrate? And of course, I will do a bit of a conclusion. Now, sports, as I said earlier on, is an organized and a competitive and skillful physical activity, which asks for devotion and fair play. If you are not committed to it, you are not devoted, of course, you discover that you are not achieving what you achieve. But then, as you are striving to achieve your goal, you're also having in mind that fair play is your watchword. Sport includes both competitive and non-competitive activities. We're talking about things like jogging, running, exercising, swimming, and so on. It is a socio-cultural system with different segments of its action. Migration of performers, coaches, administrators, and course scientists all over the globe. Once there's sport somewhere, you see people. There is research aspect of it. There is the group of people that don't actually actively participate, but they are producers of equipment. There are people who are into officiating. There are people who are said to be the organizers, and the rest of them. People move around to experience some of these things. We discovered that in the major baseball league, more than 27% of players on the opening day were not even, in particular, in 2010, were not even residents of the United States originally. Migration is implicitly recognized to be an adaptation driven by the transitory availability and changing location of resources. Once you find out that, oh, there, you get something better there for that you can do better in whatever skills you have, you want to go there. That's sport. And because you know that, like I said earlier on, is a universal language, you speak the same language you speak them, even when you do not understand them in the real sense of the common languages that we speak. So sport migration is a tool for socio-cultural emancipation because sport has a language, like I said, that is understood by all. And it can also reduce xenophobia because you interact with groups and you have a friendly environment. It is not a situation where you are saying something and people don't understand. You say it's a kick. A kick is a kick in football. A throw-in is a throw-in. A service is a service. And somebody else will not come and contest that. And because it's an institutionalized thing, of course, all the rules and regulations are universally acceptable. Sport migration is a socio-economic and cultural mechanism used by putting a geographical location of nations on global sportsmen for the purpose of development. There are nations that ordinarily will not know about them, if not for sport. Even given a good day today, you discover that when you travel out of the shores of the country called Nigeria, our own country called Nigeria, before they start asking for who is the head of state, before they start asking you for who is that, once you say they see you as Nigerians, they will start asking for the sports star. And they have an idea of what your country has done, the exploit of your country in sport. Just adorn the green-white apparel, you will see that people will begin to ask if you are, they won't even ask you, they start asking for the staff. Say, where's the market? Where is this? Where's that? So migration of athletes for sports is an industry worth billions with players being traded between clubs. You hear billions, and even what presidents cannot earn, where chief executives of companies cannot earn, you see athletes boasting of how much they are paid for the service. They sign big contracts. Now, let me quickly move on to the theories, because for us to understand the concept of migration, don't forget also that migration in different fields will be interpreted depending on who is studying migration. You have listened on this platform a couple of times where different definitions have been given, but we're trying to look at it here, looking at it from the theoretical angle. There's the first theory, the dominant theory, which is explaining causes of migration, is the neoclassical theory, which is underlying assumption that migration is stimulated primarily by rational economic considerations. We're going to look at the benefits they're going to get from it. According to this theory, migration is driven by geographical differences in that supply and demand. Here you get this, there you are not getting it. There is in Europe, there are clubs. Even in Nigeria, you discover what is wrong with us. We sometimes ask. Most times we'll adorn colors and jerseys of clubs in the developed world. Given the chance, such individuals will not even mind to travel to such countries to go and participate in sport or benefit from sport. The central argument of the neoclassical approach concentrates on wages, that where you can get higher wages, you want to go there. You want to go there. You don't want to stay a pauper all through your life. Now, the second one is the human capital theory, which enriches the neoclassical theory by incorporating socio-human capital theory using the demographic characteristics of the individual as an important determinant of the action. Here, the neo-economic theory, the key argument of the new theory is that migration decisions are not made by isolated individuals, but actually by households, by families to say, oh, let's go. That's an improvement on that we want to get better living. Why don't we relocate? And we have found quite a lot of families relocate to other parts of the world because they want to be better off in terms of their resources. So that migrant decisions are not based purely on individual profit maximizing calculations, but are rather household response to both income and risk to the failures of a variety of markets. The third one is the dual labor market theory. The dual labor market theory posits a bifurcated occupational structure, a dual pattern of economic organization and advanced economy, where there is care for both the elite, of course, and then the uneducated. where your concern is not recruiting only those who are rich, but the idea is that either you are an elite or elitist in terms of your sporting career, or you are just a beginner. You have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to make a living, successful living for that matter. Now, the next one, which is the network concept, perpetuation of migration. That particular one, that theory does not look at the determinants. No, it doesn't look at determinants which initiate migration, rather at what perpetuate migration in time and space. Migrant networks, which often evolve into institutional framework, help to explain why migration continues even when wage differentials or recruitment policies cease to exist. Even though, yes, it's the same salary you're getting here in Nigeria is what they are paying you in Ghana. You have made some contacts. You feel that you're going to be beneficial. The network theory is closely affiliated to another approach known as the migration systems theory. That you have made, for instance, I know that in my institution there is a bilateral kind of competition, games that is holding between Nigeria and Ghana. Students are always looking forward to that. And of course, we have had even marriages contracted through this process. Some Nigerians will go and say, oh, no, I'm going because I have this individual there. Now, I move quickly to the roles of sports. I have tried to say a few things about the roles of sports earlier, but in specific terms, sport has played a role of a socio-cultural binding, kind of a socio-cultural phenomenon, in which case determined by people, the connection of people doing the same thing or doing similar exercises. Sport events have played pivotal roles in communities around the world throughout history. Sport is a powerful socialization force, no doubt. Once it's like, sometimes it looks like a cult. You see people fighting, struggling to be with their sport idol, even when the idol has done something funny. Your solidarity, your interest in that person will not cease. You want to protect your sport idol, and that happens everywhere. More importantly, when you find out that the country is hosting an athletic event, good money for that. Politically, culturally, a lot of the things that you have in your country are transported back to to countries where those ones came from. Hosting sport events can boost tourism. Oh, so much has been said about sport tourism in recent times. I don't know why countries are not really putting money into this. Now, sport has a unique power to attract, mobilize people, and inspire. You need to be at the World Cup. You need to be at the Olympic Games. You need to be at the All-African Games and see the unity. Even when you are beaten, you still have the spirit that, yes, it's in participation. It is not about winning. Yeah, you are there. There are big names that ordinarily you have wanted to meet, but you have not been able to meet them. Or that maybe you meet them in other spheres of life, you are not able to talk to them. But in sports, the closeness is there. When there's a goal, you see everybody jumping up, flying, and then rejoicing. And then when the mood is not too good, you see everybody looking also not too happy. So you attract people, you mobilize people, it helps. When you want to do any campaign, it's easy to use the sport arena. No wonder many companies in the world put in a lot of billions of dollars to sponsor sports programs such that their products can be advertised. Some people take careers in sports, like my distinguished colleague, Dr. Neto, a professional in one area of sports science, and many people who are sports managers. There are sports medicine practitioners, there are sports scientists, sports psychologists, administrators, coaches, referees, and all that. People make good money from sports. Now, to us, what is migration? We call migration we look at it from four different perspectives, but they overlap. First, a type of locomotory activity that is notably persistent, undistracted, and straightened out. Some have listened to presentations before where also people have looked at relocation by animals that is in a more greater scale and involve movement of much longer duration than those arising from the normal daily activities. It is a seasonal, also a seasonal to and fro movement of population between regions, where conditions are alternately favorable and unfavorable. Where the condition is not favorable here, they move on to another one. And then when it's not good there again, they move to a different location where they think it is better. So yes, are ways we have looked at migration. Now we try considering migration can take a number of forms and have been described by biologists in different ways. The first one focused on the organism. 2, the spatial or temporary attributes, and the third, the medium in which migration takes place. However, it can be obligate or facultative. Facultative. What do we mean? You can be forced to move. You can be forced to move. Becomes highly obligatory. You have to move because, of course, in war-torn regions, you cannot stay. You have to vacate. You have to move to a different place. The other one is that I choose. It's optional. I decide to move depending on whether the place that I'm going is good enough for me or not. Okay. Then in sports, those of us in sport, how do we see migration? It is an aspect of social change that we feel that what leads people to move from one country to another. Well, we have talked about some of these things. What kind of people are more likely to migrate? What are the motives to make this decision? We have said earlier on that the environment is a major factor. If the environment is not favorable, you are just there. And you know you have talents. You have the potential to excel. Then, of course, you cannot remain there, and you don't want to remain there. Okay? Sport level migration occurs at 3 different levels. It can be within the nations, it can be between nations located within a continent, and of course, it can be between nations located in different continents and hemispheres. Sport migrants are consistently on the move, and therefore might experience issues of dislocation. Because when you move, when you migrate, you are not going to, is that how it is? It's not like people saying stay in your cool region, in your comfort zone. You may not have any problem relatively. But then when you move, there are a number of discomfort that you would experience, and that's represented in this illustration here. You have motivation for that you're going to be recruited. Of course, you want to live in another land, but then you experience lots of problems. Sometimes it's the local language that is first the issue, which sport ultimately will help you solve. There's a dislocation and adjustment issues and all that. Now, we consider the next. What are the typologies of migrant athletes? We have them. We have what we call the mercenary. We have what we call the nomadic, cosmopolitan. We have the returnee. We have the pioneers. We have the exile and the expert. And we have the ambitionists. I'm going to discuss that under the motivation for athletes migration, because like I said, these things are also interrelated. The typologies shed light on the decision-making process of athletes within the transactional sport labor market. The type of migrants labeled as sport pioneers are occupied with passion and almost evangelical zeal, advertising virtues in their sport, particularly when a new sport, type of sport had been introduced. You need, there was a time we were sent to some parts of the world to go and learn about certain sport. Such persons, like the missionaries themselves, if they're coming to preach the type of religion, these individuals will come around to tell you that this is what we have developed and this is what we want you to learn about it. We have the settlers, those migrants who eventually settle in the society where they perform. Oh, I think I found this place interesting. I don't want to go elsewhere anymore. I think I will bring my family and all of that. The motives of migrants identified as mercenaries are mainly short-term benefits. In order to do so, they use their agents to achieve well-paid jobs. Oh, there's a club recruiting. Mercenaries in this context is not the type that will use illegal, non-bona fide members to play for certain teams. They will be legally recruited, and then they go there, they play, earn their living. Once it's not favorable anymore, the wages are not what they should be, they also migrate to another club or location. Mercenaries are characterized by little or no association with their migration place. It's my money that I want. I don't care what you do. The motives of nomads lie within more cosmopolitan engagement with migration, whereas returnees are identified in the European process of forced labor migration and can represent either of the rest of the typologies. They go, they come, they still go back. It can be stated that the personal and professional objectives of migrants are complicated and multifaceted. Now, is the migration valued by the football players as a developmental period in their lives? Is it? Do they consider these pioneers, mercenaries, returnee or nomadic or whatever as a rite of passage? Do they see that, yes, no, there shouldn't be obstacles, we should be allowed to go because we have what it takes to move? Do their reasons for migration rely mainly on gaining instant economic reward or the desire to be the best at what they can be? That's why I said it has different faces. People have different reasons. Lack of opportunity for career development and ability to test their skills at top level will make some people, you may have the skills, yes, you may have the clubs, yes, in your country, but then you are not given the chance to do it. Each time, for political reason, for ethnic reason, for whatever reason, you are not allowed. You are not allowed to adorn the colors of your country. So, well, away with them. I better look for other reasons, other places to perform my skills and get to the top of my career. So why people migrate will have main reasons. To emphasize at this lecture, economic gains. 2, settlement, cultural experience. Of course, related to all of them is the football ambition. More importantly in football. Some answers of this are related to football, more important because of the love of the game. It can be stated that the motivations and experience of sports migrants are multifaceted, like we said before. It has political undertone, it has historical, it has economics, it has geographical, as well as cultural values. All these play significant role in identifying the motivation of sport migrants and influence their experience during the migration process. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, sports and migration have over the years maintained a symbolic relationship. Once you have sporting skills, you don't want to die with the skill. You want to exhibit it. You want to use it to your advantage to make life better for you and maybe for your family, even for your country. Athletes migrate to countries where there is seemingly greener pasture and where their skills can be greatly developed. Yeah. If you see the complicated nature of equipment used in developing athletes in the developed world, everyone wants to have a taste of it. I had a personal experience of training athletes on a green lawn, or just on a green lawn. And then, of course, the first experience they had after we have trained them was to play on a hard court. They got to the hard court. Of course, still similar to the green lawn. They were still able to manage. But I took them further to a particular stadium where they now have to use a rubberized kind of court. The athletes didn't do too well in their first encounter with the opponent because by actually running on a rubberized surface, appeared to them what they were going to fall, or that maybe the dribbling that they're supposed to do in football, they were not able to do it and all that. But I told them, these handball at that time had gone beyond playing on grass. And so people will go because they feel that they have to get new experiences. We said earlier on today that sport has a global network of connections where people interact and make transactions by truly buying and selling. In the legal term, in the legal sense, sport features multi-million-dollar investment, corporate brands. To be associated, there are some sports in Nigeria. Once you mention the name of the company, we know what they stand for. And of course, I know one particular thing that we always say in the FIFA meetings, that if the time for the kickoff is 4 p.m., you must also be there at 4 p.m. because we're told that all sponsoring companies and agencies are online to hook up with you. And so if you are not there, of course, you're already asking for litigation after the match. And it's first class first-class entertainment all over. See people pay to view sports programs. People pay to enter the stadium. People pay to view on the screen and all sorts of things like that. What is it that we are saying? Sport development should be given utmost priority by all persons at all levels. Today, people want to harvest sport talents at the highest level. They do not care how the grassroots is, how you develop the talent. I remember a journalist sometime, a colleague journalist said, what are they doing in physical education? And I laughed at him. I said, if people just wake up and you just rely on their natural talents of just being able to run and jump, without somebody at the primary level refining those skills, then of course you know that you won't get the stars that you're looking at or looking out for at the higher level. And when you make policies on sport development, payment of salary, injury, sustain, and damage should be made to favor athletes, insurance policies, and many other things that are done. Of course, I want to conclude that the sports migrant, that athlete, we call him, is God. Everything should be done to favor the athlete, to make sure there are no barriers to his movement or her movement, so that any part of the world that the individual wants to function, there's opportunity for him to excel there. Because sport, like I've started with, is a universal language, and everyone is expected to speak it, even in sports programs. So in non-sports programs, when you have companies having their week or celebration, somewhere where they are not even interested in real sport, they still put novelty, where they will come out to laugh and joke and all that, in terms of to enjoy their leisure pursuit. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity, and want to wait for comments and the clarification.
Thank you very much, Professor Fadoju, for keeping to time and for sharing knowledge with us. You have showcased what Elena Perez Nino, in one of our studies, called labor as a mobile commodity. Indeed, using sports, we can talk about either temporary or permanent commodity in the context of migration studies. I have asked us to kindly note in the chat box whether we have questions or comments. I do have one, but if you also someone, okay, I have two. Thank you very much, Professor Okagbare is one of our senior professors at NOW. So we will have Dr. John, and I will unmute you at the appropriate time. Dr. John Okparaduru, Professor Okagbare. I can't see any other hand, except if you are waving. If you are waving, it means I have to go all the way, just flipping and going up and down. Before I allow, okay, there's another second hand up. Let me see. Okay, soon to be Dr. Clement Ejembi. Jack Ejembi is the third person that will go after Professor Okagbare. But before they do that, let me ask these questions. One, or something to also alert the presenter in terms of expatiating. I initially put down sport. When you say sport is limited to social and environment factor, but at the point towards the end of your presentation, sir, you said you also listed economic factor, because one of the first things I noted here is athletes and cash flow and remittances. Do you have statistics? Can you share with us in terms of cash flow, in terms of the African diaspora, in terms of, in this case, Nigeria, and how it has really helped to help the economy? I think people like Dr. Mina William will be interested in that, in that aspect. So you may want to share with us. The other thing that I want you to kindly look into, maybe not now, or maybe later, is a sample biographical discourse. When you mention those squatters, can you hear me, sir? As a sample biographical discourse. Can you hear me? Prof, can you hear us?
I'm trying to, but it's not very clear.
Okay, I will say it again, sir. I said, if you can share with us samples of people in the context of the settlers example that you gave that have actually settled, okay? If you can do that today, if not, maybe in your revised paper, you can do that. I'm asking Professor Kagbari to unmute. I'm asking Dr. John Okparaduru. Are you still with us, Dr. John Okparaduru? Let me see. Okay, yeah, I can find you now. You put Oyemachi, okay. To unmute, and then Mr. Ejembi, that is one of our early scholar and one of the first wave of Tedford Morgan scholars for the doctoral program at Morgan State University. I congratulate you with the other 31 scholars that made it. So Ejembi, I've asked you to also unmute. So we'll listen to John, and then I'll take others as I identify them.
Okay,
so
thank you,
go
Prof.
ahead, Dr. John Okparaduru.
Thank you, Prof. I will start this way. I want to appreciate the members of the council in this very forum, and our Vice Chancellor, if he's available, and our distinguished Director of Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies. I must first of all thank our guest presenter, Professor Andy Fadoju, for a very wonderful, insightful presentation. But my comment only is one, that is on the PowerPoint sharing. It could not be displayed in such a way that the PowerPoint could actually come out very well in such a way that every other person can see. Rather, the PowerPoint was replacing the presenter's in the front.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I noticed that too, and I believe we all noticed that. Thank you. Professor Okagbare, please.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. And
good morning, sir.
I'm very happy. The presentation went very well. So I want to thank Prof for coming on board and for a very nice presentation. I just want to ask, how can we achieve grassroots development of sportsmen in Nigeria? Because we have seen that over the years, there seems to be a kind of retrogression. We used to hear of people like Steve Keshi in those days, or Mokashi, the likes of Kocha, JJ, and all that. But
continue, Prof.
But in recent times, we seem to be going down. And so, what do you think that the country should do to ensure that we sustain the height we have attained in sports? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ejembe. You are next, and I've asked you severally to unmute. You are on mute now. You can speak, please. Jack Ejembe, you are on mute. Is this the same person, or there's another Ejembe on this platform?
I am on mute now. Thank you. Okay, so Professor, I really appreciate you, but I want to just say that sport, as a person, I really have not been a fan, but I've been following the trend. And the little comment I want to make is almost in line with Professor Gregory's comment, and it's usually what is commonly observed in our society. I want to really look at the impact of sport on our youth, Nigerian youth, because if you observe the trend now, it looks as if sport is encouraging gambling and social vices and even youth idleness. When you see viewing centers anywhere, maybe somebody in the society set up a viewing center, you see a bunch of youth there almost all the time in the evening. And if you see the caliber of persons there and the kind of lifestyle they promote, it makes sporting scary, sort of. And then people who are interested in gambling will not be seen as those who really have anything to contribute to.
Okay, thank you very much. That guy does not like even Bendel Insurance or Superstore.
Their emphasis, like even the sports stars, like in the past, we know about Kanu, people like Kanu, who played internationally and then was able to even set up Kanu Heart Foundation, which was beneficial to the society. But these days, we see it's either about money or gambling or social vices and all these things. So it's scary, sir. Professor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ijembi. I would like to add one more. Can you also share with us the ILO convention on the labor and migration in the context of sport administration globally? I will allow you to speak, to respond rather to some of those comments and the questions while I search for more people before our time is up. We are doing good on time. So Prof, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I must sincerely apologize for the mix-up in the slides. That it wasn't coming the way it was intended. If you know how long we have been on setting up the studio all along and all that, you would sympathize with us. And the technical people are still not resting on their hours. They're still running here and there to fix things, even though towards the end of the whole exercise. However, sincere apologies. We'll improve on that some other time. Now, come to the question or the observation on data on cash flow. Permit me to say that in the context of this paper, you won't find it there, but in the revised version that will be put forward for publication, that it is interesting to note that most of these people that travel to Europe and other parts of the world, from Nigeria particularly, of course, bring so much money back to their host countries. I mean, their home countries. And this has greatly influenced the economy of their home countries. Not only that, the kind of fame that they have acquired over time also has significant effect on politics of the nations and all that. For instance, you find a country like Liberia recruiting or electing the person of the gentleman president, the current president of Liberia. These are some of the influences that one would expect that your exposure will bring back to your country, because you have seen how things are done and you want to come back home and improve on what is happening in your community. Now, the one that also taught me the most is the question of grassroots sports development. I want to say with all sense of responsibility that there are not only grassroots sport development that have been neglected in this country. So many things have been left undone. We have been relying on finished products. Many of these talents that we exhibit, we see all over the globe, started from somewhere. But today, rather than a coach going down to the grassroots to look for young talents, budding athletes to train up so that they also, I give it to Chief Adeboye. He would not go look for finished products. He will always come back to our local leagues to look for players that he would clean up, and he had done excellently during his time. And he's still emphasizing that, look, the more we neglect school sports, the more we see, you agree with me that most of our communities now, most of our cities, places that were ordinarily supposed to be reserved for either recreation or parks have been taken over by people who want to build petrol stations or build a shopping mall or whatever, what have you, halls, event halls and all that to make money. It is a reflection of our values, and takes me very quickly to, but of course, sports administrators, sport enthusiasts, sport people are not keeping quiet about it. sport advocates. Everywhere we go to speak about sport, we tell government, put in, it's not about big money, it's about the policy. Of course, there's a grassroots policy development in Nigeria, but it's not good enough to have the policy and then nobody is implementing. Just like there are so many laws all over the places that somebody is not implementing. Now come to the value that was mentioned, that of course everything is a matter of perception. If you see sports as a money spinning event, you of course want to explore how to get your own money legitimately from sport. That is not to say that there will not be some red spots where some individuals will use illegal means to look for money. Gaming, gambling, and all that are all aspects of sporting, no doubt, of course. But then they have got their rules. But there are shortcuts within these rules that are not allowed within the law. But people do them. And when they are caught, the hand of the law will have its course on them. And so the values, as it were, the values of sport will still remain. Sociologically, I have talked extensively about how it promotes interpersonal relationships all over. It brings about good citizenship. It brings about your own wellness in all manners of physical fitness. Is it performance related? Is it wellness related? You are a total being when you are into sport. In fact, I always refer to the opinion of Sergeant Dudley, who always say the best way to counteract the harmful effect of nervous tension is through participation in sporting program, organized sports program. Even when you see a bank manager or a chief executive of a company will come back from work tired, apparently, but then will still pick up his tennis racket to go to a nearby tennis court to knock the ball against the wall or play with a colleague. In other words, it recreates, sport recreates. Depending on the way you look at it, it's a leisure time process that when you are not at work, you keep busy. But you realize that the number of youth that are not really engaged now, 24/7, there are so many. And the devil, of course, finds work on idle hand. So once they are not obligated, they have to find something to do. And sports being a free-for-all thing, you can be involved when you want, you can disengage when you want. And so they find it as an avenue to also perpetrate some of the things evil that perhaps people in their minds. And so it is interesting to say that the value, the benefits are still there. And it's just that we all, as administrators of sport, those of us who are involved, should continue to advocate for a situation where the energies of these young people be diverted to the positive part, rather than allowing them to go into the negative part. As for the ILO, I will have to do a lot of more exploration to get the exact position of ILO on sports migration, and that will be integrated into the real paper for necessary consideration for publication. I want to thank you for the opportunity while I wait for other comments. Maybe you need to unmute me.
You are not hearing me?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Can you hear me now?
Very well.
Yes, sir.
What about now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll listen quickly to Dr. Oyeduni Obey and Dr. Rosemary Saidu, and then your response, and then we'll try to round up. I've unmuted both Dr. Obey and Dr. Saidu. Thank you. Is Mrs. Obey there? Dr. Saidu, you can go ahead if she's not there.
Good morning, House. I want to
to say a big congratulations to our eminent professor, Professor Andy, for the brilliant presentation and also for the very beautiful PowerPoint illustration, beautifully displayed. But my only observation, the only thing I want to talk on is that you, in your presentation, sir, Prof, you did mention a lot of merits. You said sports is profitable economic-wise, historically, culturally. But you did not really, when you were talking about the problems, you did not lay emphasis on the problem. You can see that through sports, I observed that all these banditry, a lot of ills that came in through sports. I want you to kind of dwell a little on this. I really enjoyed your presentation. More grace to your ego, and the Lord will continue to be with you. And I am so amazed by that display of University of Ibadan. You are proud of your
Thank you very much.
university.
One of those.
That's why
Thank you very
put
much.
on your search. Thank you
Thank
very much,
you.
Professor.
I decided not to record that aspect because it's one of those universities. I'm just joking. I wish I have a degree from Ibadan, and Professor Emeritus is here, so I don't want to get some queries from my Baba. So, Prof, kindly quickly respond. I'm trying to see whether the Vice Chancellor was able to join us today. It's so busy, and as you know, today is our first day of official opening. So if not, I will give Professor Sogolo the closing remarks after your comment. Oyeduni is here. Dr. Oyeduni, can you go ahead? Prof. Andy, please hold on.
Okay.
Dr. Oyeduni, you can go ahead and speak. I think I'll unmute you. Go ahead, ma. Oh, sorry, let me unmute you. Okay, go ahead, you are unmuted. Unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted myself. Hello,
okay,
everybody.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm yet to become a doctor. I will soon become one by grace of God.
Receive it by His grace.
Yes, I do. Amen. I'm a fan of sports. I love sports so much. Even at the higher level, at the higher institution, I was into sports. My question is, what would the government do to encourage sports, even at the primary level? We have so many talents there. I started sporting while at primary school in University of Ilorin, then primary school there. But along the line, we were not encouraged. Things went so bad, funding, especially in the issue of funding. What can be done, please? I really love this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would take one more. If Dr. Fagbon or Fagbon that is still with us, if you're here, you just post something on the, I don't know how you sign it, but in any case, I will share that comment with Professor Fadoju. Prof, quickly respond. We have 7 minutes.
All right, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The comment on the yields, as much as possible, for my own advocacy, I know that whatever you are asking that has, like I said, has a positive side, would have some yields. But as much as possible, I want to let us know in this house that most of these youths that are into, let me begin from this perspective that most times they see sports people as being promiscuous. Sometimes, some group of people see them because when there's somebody, if you have done a race and you have won, you see them embracing, sometimes kissing themselves and do a lot of things, hugging. So, how can you be hugging a female? How can you do that? But you have forgotten that it's because in the open. I mean, you free. You don't attach any emotion to it. You are in the swimming pool, for instance, swimming. Are you in the pool to go and look at the nakedness of another person, or you have gone to the pool to look at to swim to get the skill? I think our interest is, have been on the fact that there is a problem with our values on the general. And people now find sports as an opening a kind of free atmosphere where some of their aspirations can be met. I said, what we can do about that is, as much as possible. For instance, look at the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. I've done a few studies on the Niger Delta region of this country. And then historically, we found out that when the refineries and all these things were built, there were suggestions from sports people, from the people in the humanities, include things about behavior, include activities and programs that would tame the local community and even the workers in the industry, not about the engineers alone, not about the hydrologists alone, not about the things. No. They are not important. If attention is given to things like that, it will influence and possibly influence the restiveness in the Niger Delta. I have used this a couple of times. When youths are agitated, I just tell them, come on, let's play for Padoju Cup. First prize, 100,000. Second prize, 70,000. Third prize, 50,000. Even everybody will win. Even the third runners up will get 25,000. You will see them organizing themselves into good teamwork. You see them getting together. All the attributes, the positive values of sport being displayed. Submission to the leader. They want to play fairly. They want to do this and observe all the rules because you have channeled it towards something positive. They are looking forward. The ultimate is that when the money comes, it might not be much, but then they know that they will get something out of it. But most times, our attention is just focused on getting results. And don't forget that today's youth is different from the youth of yesteryear. What it took us 30 years to achieve, a current youth at the moment want to achieve it in less than 1 year or two. So that is that. Then what should government do? Government has been doing a lot. Let's give it to them. But even very recently, the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sport brought some revision of the sports policy and all of that. But we can revise sports policy over and over. If we don't return to the basics, wherein sport will depend, like how many school systems will you say is regular now? The school sport that we used to enjoy. When you say between December or thereabout or November up to around March, we have schools organizing inter-house sports where you discover talents that will do you proud at the zonal level, where you discover talents, and then from there, you go to the state level and then national. That's how some of us were discovered at the local level, and we came to play for our respective states at that time. You know, but today, is it where a child gets to school? If I want to private school, will not even encourage that it's all about academics and academic, do homework, do all sorts of things. They don't care. So, but today, the interest seems to be more about academic and then irregular school system. So, if we don't get to reorganize ourselves and then government also providing funds, well, I'm not pessimistic, but there are quite a lot of things that are naturally fundamental and that government is not even doing. So by the time you come to government and then sport is a service industry that is not going to bring the returns as it were immediately. And so by the time you're asking government, put 10 billion naira into sport development, say, wow, where are we going to get that money? What shall we get in return? I think it's a complete reorientation of people, our politicians, our people in authority, even school administrators. We have been organizing lots of conferences and some of seminars, going all out on advocacy. It took me almost about 6, 7, 8 years on advocacy on sports peace. Because at a point in time in Nigeria, you discover that at every sports event, particularly football, you have the head of the referee broken and all those kind of things like that. But I took it up as a personal project then to go all out at every sport or any football match or event to do an advocacy campaign. I bought quite a number of white handkerchiefs and all of that, did a lot of leaflets to give to people, and then carry the megaphone at the entrance of the stadium to start. This is a friendly match. This is between two nations. Of course, our press men also have to be cautioned because there's a lot they are doing that is also causing all this violence and all these things we're talking about. When Nigeria was to play Cameroon, you see a newspaper in Nigeria with displaying a feature. Nigeria plays Cameroon, another Bakassi war. I mean, this like all insightful comments go a long way in giving the people the impression that you are going there to fight. Whereas contest. Call it contest, you don't call it fight. Even when you are doing judo, you say you are playing judo. You will just say you fight judo. And these are some of it. We use the appropriate words, the appropriate language, and then of course, at the end of the day, we'll be maybe starting from little by little, we'll continue to advocate for more better funding of sports, and then of course, it would permeate the entire society that we're able to get things better done in our country. I want to thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Prof. Someone just described your presentation and response as being superb. That is the description of one of the participants. Don't worry, you will hear me in the recording. We thank you most sincerely for sharing your knowledge with us. And from your last comment, I just have something scribbled down for a potential paper. And guess what the title is?
Yeah.
It is Peace and Sport, Advocacy for Peace in Sport Education.
Yeah.
A biographical pedagogical discourse of Andy Fadoju. Because what you just told us should be teachable.
Yeah.
What you have done, I didn't know about it, and I'm guessing about 50, 60 something numbers that are participating today have no clue. That is your own contribution. And those are some of the studies we need to engage ourselves in. What is the narrative? What have we done individually? We thank you most sincerely, sir. In the absence of the Vice Chancellor not being here with us, I will yield to Professor Emeritus Sogolo, our first professorial fellow of the center, to kindly round up. Baba, I'm asking you to kindly unmute.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So to just give us another wisdom. Unmute yourself, sir. Hello, Prof. Just 1 second.
Me.
Unmute, sir. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, sir. Oh, unmute yourself. Don't touch anything.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Ibikunle. I want, first of all, to congratulate Professor Andy Fadoju. You don't expect anything less from Ibadan. And you really have made us, you have made us proud.
Okay.
And in fact, you just remind us of UI's current ranking among world universities. So you have done us proud. Thank you very much. I wanted at the beginning to say, you've left out a very important aspect, because the primary function of sport is really not commercial. You sport for the health of society, health of the individual and health of society. But when you were answering the questions, you came down, you mentioned that. I really also want to say thank you for honoring us. I want to also appreciate all those who have been participating in this program over the period. Professor Ibikunle, what you have done is that you are really promoting scholarship in now. And it's something very good that is happening to now. And this whole idea of inviting scholars from outside is itself another good development for us. So I thank you very much. And I thank you all participants.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. I thank all of you. I thank Professor Bosworth. I can see him. Professor Okagbari, Dr. Afolabi. I've seen so many of you, even Mrs. Ileka, you know. Thank you very much. He's one of our very senior registry, a deputy registrar of repute. We thank all of you. We appreciate you. We will see you again on Monday next week. And we will share with you our video recording of this. Every day, every presentation, we do record and we edit, and then we put it on YouTube as a permanent record, you know, digitalized. So please, just all you need to do is to search for CEMGS, and then you will find previous recording. Thank you so much. God bless you, and bye-bye to everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
God bless you.
Thanks, everybody.
Amen. Amen.